So one of the hardest things I had to learn as a videographer, a cinematographer, or a content creator was that gear doesn't matter. And not in the sense that like high quality gear doesn't matter. We're literally shooting this on an FX3 with a Sony G Master lens. Gear matters by all means. But the hard thing that I think I had to understand was that like what gear or what brand wasn't as important as I thought it to be. Let me explain. So when I first started photography, which was about just under 10 years ago, I picked up a Canon camera, and that's all I really knew. My parents had owned one of those. Of course, we start recording, and immediately when we start recording, there's a fire truck that goes off. When I started shooting, I started out on a Canon camera. It was like one of those Canon T3i Rebels, like one of the base models. Didn't even take video. It's just a camera that my mother had purchased when we were young to be able to take photos at tournaments, etc. We knew nothing, threw it on auto, etc. And when I finally got into photography, I always thought for some reason I would get into Nikons, and Nikon were like this prestigious thing that I thought was amazing, but I ended up going with a Canon 80D because at the time that's what was a little bit more affordable, and it had a stronger video specs and capabilities, and so I went with that. But I'd always thought I'd eventually go into a Nikon. But then the more and more I shot with the Canon, I fell in love with Canon and the colors and the simplicity and the UI, and then I became the biggest Canon fanboy, and I would never let go of Canon. And when all the Sonys came out, I was always like, yeah, but is it really as good as Sony? And I loved the autofocus on Canon. And then the Canon autofocus started going down, and some of the perks and some of the issues I was struggling with was low light. And so the Sonys were becoming more and more attractive, to the point where I then had to make a shift towards the Sony FX3 in order to be able to adapt to a lot of the contexts and events that we were shooting, which were a lot in low light. And then I ran into more issues with the Sony colors and all these things, and then I started shooting with different things for different projects, and I started to realize that it really doesn't matter what gear you use, it just matters how you use it. A lot of the cameras nowadays, especially some of the higher end stuff like the Sony A7V, are very powerful cameras, and regardless of which tool, which lens, all these things, they will give a high-end result. And so it's all about learning how to use the tools, how to light, how to compose, and obviously and ultimately storytelling. It's been a learning journey for me to be able to learn to let go of the attachment that I have to gear. Because for me, gear is so important. It's something I find very emotional. I literally name all my cameras, all our drones, because to me, each camera sort of has its identity, and it's been very difficult to let go. And so today, we're going to be unboxing the Sony A7V, which we just got. It's going to be sort of our hybrid camera. And why is this really important, and why am I making this video? Well, first of all, it's because we're going to be testing this out. But we already know how Sonys work in terms of video. We're shooting on FX3s. We've been shooting on FX3s for the last 2 years. But this is the first time that I'm seriously going to be shooting on a Sony when it comes to photo, because with the purchase of this camera, we are officially switching from Canon to Sony. So until now, we were shooting on both an FX3 and a Canon R5 for both photo and video. So I preferred to stay on Canon for photo because for some reason I thought that Canon cameras were better for photo. They were just, the UI was better. It felt like a photo camera. I really loved the colors. I was used to it. And I just felt like they were superior in many ways in terms of shooting. Body-wise, they're really meant for photos. While I felt like the FX3 was really meant for video. We can cage it up, there's all these ergonomical tools, like be able to mount monitors, mics, and all these things that just made sense for video. But for photo, when you're holding this up to your eye all the time, I just felt like there was a lot of things with Canon cameras that kind of suit photo cameras a lot, which is one of the reasons why we moved away from Canon when it came to video, but it's also one of the reasons I couldn't let go of it for photo. But it is extremely annoying to have to show up with 2 different bodies at a shoot and 2 different sets of lenses. For each camera, as you can imagine, this gets really heavy. and doesn't really make any sense. For example, when I went to Iceland, I brought 2 FX3s and my R5 Mark II, but I couldn't bring a 70-200 because it was just too heavy. And so I couldn't get any of those like long range, big compression, waterfall shots that I wanted to get because I just didn't have the room and I couldn't carry that. Instead, if I had just brought this, for example, and the A75, then I have both a photo camera and a video camera, and ultimately I could probably just bring this and I'd be fine. Which is why we ended up getting the Sony A75. So, let's go ahead and unbox it, shall we? Here we go. Here's the camera. You also get a strap. First time I ever owned a Sony strap. And you get a Sony battery, which I'm gonna charge right now. Here it is. You guys get to see before I do the brand new Sony A75. Ooh, it has this double swivel screen. I did not know this. I've done like zero research on this camera. We also got these brand new tough cards by Angel Bird for this camera. So I believe that the A75 only takes 1 slot for the tough cards, beauty, and it takes 1 slot for SD cards. Or is that the other way around? Yeah, it's this way. Anyone else like hate the feeling of like shoving a card in a slot that doesn't seem to be feeling like, I feel like I'm gonna break this. Yeah, the SD card's the other way around. What an interesting, I guess that makes sense, but that was not intuitive at all. I literally have no idea what I'm looking at, and so my friend Kiana is coming later on, and she also has the A75, so she's gonna be showing me all the ins and outs. I think she has like a cage and everything. It's gonna be really fun. We're gonna go shooting in the exchange today because it's the first day that it's really nice out. And I think honestly that's probably the best way to learn a camera, is literally just go and shoot and make a bunch of mistakes and make nothing out of it kind of thing. So it's gonna be really exciting. But even this, again, is just a tool. And by no means am I saying that Sony is better than Canon right now. This just makes it easier for our workflow. And again, for me, workflow, usability, and obviously the overall quality for the project and the look that we're going for, and oftentimes efficiency for me, is what makes or breaks a camera, is what makes me decide to lean towards certain gear items. This is something we will be able to use on a majority of our shoots, where we have to shoot either hybrid or we want to shoot some high quality video, but still have access to some high quality stills. And so this for us was a great investment, and it was something that we've been wanting and that I've been eyeing for the longest time. But I also don't want to give the false impression that you absolutely need this. This may not fit your workflow. It may not fit the type of clients that you're getting. It may not fit the type of gigs that you're getting. If you are a more photo focused creator, let's say you do primarily photography and you want to do some video, yes, this is still a great camera, but you could also potentially get something else like Canon, which is a great photo focused camera. Also excited to see our friend Kiana and see what she has to say about this camera, how she's been liking it so far, and hopefully learn how to use it properly from her. So this is Kiana.
Hello.
And you are going to teach me today how to use the A75.
Yeah.
Except I just taught you how to switch it to log.
Hey, man.
All right, walk me through. You're rigging this out. This is like, I'm just going to like raw dog this, and she's fully rigging.
I have the like cage and top handle, and then I just bought this recently because this is such a good like hybrid video and photography camera. I wanted something to like be able to quickly transition between the two. So I got a little just like plate here that can quickly go like, okay, I can go just take pictures, or I can like have my whole setup and just like kind of slide into it. These are my shorter rods. I have longer ones as well for like a full like shoulder rig build, but I'm not going to do that today because that's a little too extra. V-mount battery plate.
Okay, okay.
How like in detail am I supposed to be?
I want the exact model number. I want the date purchased. I want the cost. No, just
Oh yeah. USB-C in.
Okay, okay.
Got the nice curved one.
All right, show me the whole rig.
Ta-da! This is the whole rig. Got Tilta Mirage matte box, the variable ND, Shinobi Go Atomos monitor. Yeah. Sigma art lens.
You're a filmmaker.
I'm a filmmaker, kind of, sometimes.
Sometimes. All right, next day, Vince here. We tried vlogging while I was with Kiana, but it was very scattered because we were running like 3 cameras each. Kiana had her whole rig, and we were shooting both photo and video, and we were in the exchange, lots of things happening. Anyways, didn't get much content, but I did get to test out the A7V for the very first time yesterday after unboxing it. And since then, I've had the chance to bring that footage back in post and look at it very briefly, and honestly, it's a really powerful camera. So I feel like you don't really understand a camera until you test it out, or a tool until you really test it out and put it through its paces. That's why I feel like shoots like yesterday, just creative shoots, just tinkering around, are really important because they really allow you to familiarize yourself with a tool. You know, because whether or not I'm used to Sony, because we've been shooting with Sony, there's still some things that are different. Button placement and everything is different. And so it was really nice to be able to just tinker around, play around, and kind of just have fun with it. Just taking a look at the photos, I posted a couple yesterday, so if you guys want to check them out, you can. But they are really good. Because I've been scared to switch to Sony for photo, it's been very difficult, and honestly, until I saw the photos on my computer yesterday after dumping, I was still not convinced that I was going to be able to use this as a professional tool for photography. I can safely say that I'm convinced now, and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Yeah, these were amazing photos. I'll flash a couple of them that I shot yesterday. I posted a few of them on Instagram, so if you guys want to check them out, you can. But honestly, it's a really powerful camera, and I'm really impressed by it for photo. Specifically, the autofocus was obviously on point, and just the colors afterwards, I was able to really manipulate and pull them back, which is probably one of the most important things for me when it comes to both photo and video, is the color depth and dynamic range. It seemed relatively intuitive. I obviously wasn't shooting anything like burst or anything crazy, but for the most part, I was able to, you know, set my focus, nail it really quickly, and it didn't feel like I had a totally different tool in my hands. There's obviously quirks like, you know, the placement of where the shutter is, where the aperture is, that I'm absolutely not used to, but it was absolutely amazing, and it was relatively seamless to be able to use. Now for video, after watching the footage, obviously you record stuff, you come back into the studio, and then you can take a look at it. I did get a chance to look at the footage, and it's insane. We applied the same CST transform in DaVinci, and so we were able to take a look really briefly at some of that footage, and it looks incredible. It looks just on par, if not better, than the Sony FX3. There's more megapixels on this one, so in light, well-lit situations, I feel like it probably does better. But it looks absolutely insane. I don't think that I could differentiate like, oh, that's from a Sony A75 or this is from a Sony FX3. There's absolutely no difference, and it'll make for a very seamless B cam or C cam in our workflow. And so I'm really pumped on this. It seems like it was a really good purchase, and just from this initial first shoot, I'm really confident that we'll be able to use this as a very good workhorse for hybrid shoots, or just as a C cam or an extra angle that we want to use. You know, the autofocus is absolutely insane. It's tack sharp. It's way better than, I feel like it's gotten better than Canon's dual pixel autofocus. And so I really come to enjoy and rely on the autofocus. The speed of this camera is also really good. Just navigating through menus has become almost second nature now. So that's been really cool. At the beginning of our shoot, I was making fun of Kiana because I thought she knew more about the camera than I did, but I was actually showing her settings that she should be changing on it from the get-go, so that was kind of funny. I bugged her the entire shoot. The menus are relatively similar to the Sony. I really like the fact that you can switch it to S-Log and an external menu instead of looking through PP10 PP10, PP9, whichever one it is. So that's really convenient. And I also really like, again, the feature that you can switch between, or you can set different settings between your stills and your movies. And so I immediately did that because I was switching back and forth between video and photo, and I wanted to make sure that it wouldn't change my shutter speed, my ISO, and my white balance, for example, in between shoots. So that's really cool. That's really useful. There are a few things that kind of bothered me about this camera right off the bat. The first thing is the fact that the menu button, if you see it, it is on the left hand side. I'm used to on the Sony to be on the right hand side. So typically you're gripping the camera like this. And so right here is the menu button, so I can immediately go into here. And so it makes it just a little bit jarring in order to want to access your features and your settings, because I was going in here quite a bit in order to be able to change things. Luckily, I just changed a few things on custom buttons in order to make that easier. So I may not have to reach for it as much, but it did make it a little bit jarring, especially when I'm shooting video, and I can't even imagine if I had a cage that like having to go over top like this for the menu button just seems a little bit jarring. I didn't really like that at all. So that's one thing that kind of bothered me. The other thing was obviously the A75 does have a like 5-axis articulating screen, and so it's really convenient because you can do, you can just do the typical tilt up or like tilt down kind of thing, but then you can extend it, you can do all these things. But honestly, maybe I'm just not used to it, but this tilt up function wasn't really good for me because it can't see the top of the screen. The monitor is blocked off, and so I ended up like having to pull it out all the time. And so just reverting back to a normal just swivel screen like this was way more useful for me. I'm just probably just more used to it, so that's all it is. But yeah, so that was a little bit of a quirk that wasn't really impressive to me, kind of annoying. One last thing that I really wish this had was shutter angle. Obviously it's not a cinema camera, but I did become very used to being able to just set the camera on shutter angle and not have to switch back and forth or change my shutter speed rather when I'm switching from 24 to 60 frames per second. So obviously this is not a cinema camera, it is a hybrid camera, and so not necessarily the biggest drawback, and it's not necessarily something that most people are used to when switching to a camera like this, but I have come to enjoy that feature from the FX3, and so a little bit of a bummer that this doesn't have it. I had a blast being able to shoot with this camera. It felt very intuitive, and I'm honestly just really excited to be able to use this more formally and for other shoots and learning how to really get the best and the most out of this camera. It is probably the perfect tool that will fit really well into our workflow, into the type of shoots that we're doing, both sometimes hybrid or any travel gigs that I'm going to be wanting to doing. I'm hoping to travel a little bit more this year. But yeah, my first impressions is that this is absolutely a great camera, and for a hybrid shooter, it is probably the perfect camera, especially if you are doing a lot of high-end video and you already have an A cam and you're looking for a B cam but also want some stills. For travel, I think this is probably the best camera. Obviously Canon has alternatives as well, but for Sony shooters, this is definitely, I'd say, probably the go-to when it comes to hybrid shooting, especially if you're wanting to travel. So I definitely give it a check out. But we will review this camera further. I'll give you guys my more honest thoughts later on. This is just a quick, not really that quick, I don't know, the video is probably already like 15 minutes long now. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys have any comments or recommendations for things that we should check out, or like settings we should check out with this camera, please let me know. If you have any questions about the camera, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll answer them as best as possible. Otherwise, subscribe if you want to see more of these, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.